Hello again, everyone. So this is the final video to wrap up the entire series. To kickstart your creative process and also to help your stress reduction and relaxation. And in this video, we will be doing a watercolor painting of a scenery. So this is the last video in this entire series, and I decided to do something brave, and hopefully I will not make a fool out of myself. So what I'm doing here is I will be attempting a watercolor painting that is not preconceived. So I just wanted to do something simple to show you that if I can do it, probably anyone can. And in case you didn't know, the last time I touched watercolors was over half a lifetime ago, when I was 15, 16 years old. I remember I was in school painting with watercolors on a nature study of an orchid. That was literally over half a lifetime ago. And since then, I have not touched watercolors until recently while I was preparing to record this series of videos. And while recording this series of videos, I got hooked on watercolors again because I suddenly discovered that there was more to watercolors than what I remembered. So when I was doing all these videos, I found watercolors to be especially fun. And along the way, I learned a lot. It was like a rabbit hole that I went down, and it went deeper and deeper as I dug deeper and deeper, and I was having more and more fun trying. And I was inspired to try and use watercolor to incorporate it into my personal art style. So for those of you who don't already know, I am a closet artist and I've been using pastels, and my main theme is trees. And I like to paint it in a style of stained glass look. So if you want to have a look at what I've done, it's on my personal webpage that you can find towards the end of the video. And I was kind of thinking that I wanted to try and incorporate watercolors into my personal artworks to see how it looks like, because I have an idea and I would like to try that out. But before I can do that, I need to learn as much as I can about watercolors. So this began a personal journey into watercolors. So if you really want to talk about how long I've been doing watercolors, not counting my experience half a lifetime ago, which was probably not really valid in this sense, because I never learned watercolors the same way as I have learned it now. So I was actually having a lot of fun. So I only started to dabble into watercolors about 2.5 months ago. So these 2.5 months, I actually learned more than what I learned when I was 15 years old, like seriously. And it opened my eyes to a lot of things. So with these 2.5 months, I wanted to show you, to those of you who are afraid to paint, and pick up a paintbrush and just have a go at it, learn how to do it and all that. Let me be the one to make a fool of myself here and show you that if I can do it, you can do it too. And I've only had about 2.5 months worth of online lessons from YouTube University. And I don't paint every day, probably once a week, or when I'm filming videos for you, my lovely audience, to watch. And mind you, you've seen the videos, they have nothing to do with the fine art of watercolors. They are more like intuitive paintings with watercolors. So in this journey, the lessons that I've learned is, number one, watercolors have a mind of its own when it's wet. Obviously, over this 2.5 years, I've learned a little to shepherd the movements of the watercolors. Not completely, but more so than when I first started. Love it or hate it, I am hoping to be able to make use of this particular property to the best of my advantage. Second, watercolor paper does matter. That's the other thing that I've learned, and it is probably the most important thing. Third, do not buy cheap paints. Cheap paints can either ruin you or make you if you buy the right cheap paints. So for my case, the first set of cheap paints that I bought was actually giving me a very horrible experience because yes, they were cheap and they were listed as watercolors, but they weren't actually really watercolors. I think the circular pen sets that you see me use in one of my earlier videos are actually ink based or dye based, so they don't actually move like watercolors. And then in another earlier video when I was using the tube sets from Techniks, I was so disappointed because it gave me so much problems with the chalkiness of the paints when I was going over with the pens, as you have witnessed on camera, that I decided to never use them again. And I went out to buy some expensive artist grade paints. Well, they're not really that expensive. The prices are high compared to student grades, but not that much higher. I would say the set of paints that I got was probably maybe about 25 to 30% more expensive than a set of student grade paints like Winsor & Newton Cotman. So that's why I figured, if that's the case, why bother? Just go for the higher grade paints and never have to look back. And boy, was that a game changer for me, because what I was discovering when I was using those paints was a little goes a very long way. And you will see in this video when I basically just used dots of paint to paint this entire picture, and I still have a lot more paints left over to spare. That is why I say, if you are seriously thinking about going into watercolors, buy the cheapest artist grade paints that you can afford. And you don't need a lot of colors, just the basic split set of primary that is like the 6 colors, the warm red, warm blue, cold blue, warm yellow, and cool yellow, and you're set. And if you want some extra, maybe like a Payne's gray or black and a white. And with these 8 to 9 colors, it will be totally affordable. So for example, the paints that I'm using are the Mission Gold paints, and they range from between $5 a tube, 5 Singapore dollars a tube, to $12 a tube. Now, most of the primary colors are about $5 a tube, and the more expensive ones are like the purples, where it's like $12 a tube. So if you do your math right, they're not very expensive. Besides that, these are the full 15 ml tubes. I could have gotten a set of 12 Mission Gold paints of 5 ml tubes for less than the price of it would cost me to buy a set of Winsor & Newton Cotman watercolors. I am not joking. So that's why I say, why bother with student grade paints when I can get a set of artist grade paints for that kind of price? And I just jumped into it. And look at where it got me. So, in wrapping things up, I would like to thank all of you for giving me this opportunity to dive into watercolors and being inspired by the numerous number of watercolor artists that are out on YouTube. You know who you are. I really appreciate all the videos that you've shown. And you have all inspired me to pick up watercolors again. And with that, I would like to thank everyone, and I hope to see you all again in the next series of videos. Bye!